Most Amazon sellers don't fail because they work hard. They fail because they're thinking about this business the complete wrong way. After selling on Amazon for the past 6 years and building an Amazon business that has done over $40 million in sales, I've seen the same pattern over and over again. The sellers that are able to scale think completely different than the ones that struggle and end up quitting and staying in their 9-to-5 job. So in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down the mindset shifts that can take you from thinking like the bottom half to the top 1% of Amazon sellers. These are the same mindset shifts that allow me to scale and the same ones that I see holding most new sellers back. If you get this part right, everything else becomes way easier. All right, let's get into it. So one of the first things, and arguably one of the most important things that I don't see people do, is actually be able to think bigger. I remember back in 2020 when I first started, I had an extreme amount of limiting beliefs. I was making about $100K per year working for the New York City Department of Education. And at that time, I knew living in New York, $100K was not gonna get me to the lifestyle I wanted to get to. And I was frustrated. And one of the biggest shifts that allowed me to start taking bigger bets and actually get into this business was meeting my partner, Shofi. At that time, Shofi was, I don't know if he's okay with me telling this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Shofi was making over $100K per month. And simply by being around him and understanding the kind of money he was bringing in, what it allowed me to do is break this mental barrier that was keeping me stuck at $100K per month. I started believing that it was possible. And one thing that I'm super adamant about is being in bigger rooms. Being around him allowed me to take some big swing, my whole little cojones, and get into business and start actually trying to make some more money. And it changed the game. That year we made $860K. But what limited us was we started thinking that was a lot of money. The next thing we did was invest into a mentorship program with our mentors at the time who were doing 8 figures per year. And simply by being around them, it was not just the systems that we learned from them, it was actually just being around people making that much money that made us believe that it was possible. Even today, what I think is the most important thing that I've done is back in 2024, I was extremely scared about scaling up another business. I was stuck at 50K a month and I was like, damn man, I don't know how much further I could do this. I think I might quit. And I made an investment into a mentorship program around $4,000 a month, and it felt really scary at that time. Even though we had the money, just saying, hey, I'm gonna go drop $48,000 a year, it felt a little uncomfortable, all right? I had invested like that before, but for whatever reason, I had a limiting belief. As soon as I got into that room, I started getting around individuals who were doing multiple 7, 8 figures in the same business model, getting around people doing $10 million a month. And all of a sudden, these limiting beliefs started to shift. At the end of the day, when you get into bigger rooms, when you get around people that are making, more money than you, having a better life than you, at least how you describe it, what happens is you start believing it's possible. You start understanding that the people around you are just regular. They're nothing special. Well, some of them are, but they're nothing special. So you feel that you are closer to that goal than you really are. And what it allows you to do is accelerate growth. I'll tell you one last story about this, and one that sticks with me all the way through. Remember back when we first were in our Amazon mentorship, at the time of us first joining into their $50,000 mentorship program, we were at an event with them in Vegas, and there was a dude there who I met who we were walking around this trade show called ASD, and we were talking, we were learning, etc. And at that time we were both speaking, and we were both at around $300,000 per month. And I remember we were both like, hey, should we join a mentorship? Should we just do this ourselves? We're making over $3 million a year. Like, what's the big deal? We could probably figure this out. And as I went back to New York, I talked to my business partner, Shofi and Tay. We made a decision to say, you know what? F it. Let's take some money out the bank account, 50K. Let's get into this program and let's see what happens. What that allowed us to do was go from 300K per month up to $1.2 million per month in the next 12 months. We 4X'd the business. And I remember I met that gentleman at an event in New Jersey. And he was talking to me and saying, hey man, how's business going? I'm like, yeah, we're over $1 million a month. And he's like, what? I was like, yeah. He's like, that quickly? I was like, yeah. I was like, how's business for you? And he was stuck at 300K per month still. He had not grown his business at all in the next 12 months while we had 4X'd it and made a whole lot more money. And as I spoke to him more, what I realized is he was in his comfort zone. We gotta remember we are products of our environment. When we're around people, especially when you're making multiple, 6 figures a month, or even sometimes if you're making a few 6 figures a year, if you're around people or in an environment where people make you feel like you're at the top of the mountain, you stop understanding there's another mountain to climb. I'm always a strong advocate for getting into bigger rooms. Sometimes it's paying for them, sometimes it's just changing the environment. I just spent the past month in Miami, and when you're in Miami, you start feeling like a little small fish, right? Because everyone there, not everyone, at least some people just show it, but a lot of people, they make a shit ton of money. So just being in that environment for the past month, going to Newport Beach, being around a lot of other wealthy people in December, what changes are reframing my mind. Aggressively looking to scale one of our businesses to 20 million this year, other one to about 24 million this year. And this is all part of being in a bigger room, getting around people that make us feel like small fries. So what I can stress, I wish I could stress it even more. If you want to get to the top 1% of anything, you have to start being around the people in the top 1% of the game. Because that's when you stop thinking about it like this, like moonshot goal, and you start normalizing it in your head. This is what I see accelerate the growth. Now, the second thing, and this is what I feel like a lot of new sellers kind of struggle with, is not understanding that volume negates luck. See, the thing about it is, what I see a lot of, especially new sellers get into the game, is they try to get everything perfect right off the bat, right? I just had a call with our coaching students yesterday, and as I went through all of our channels, what I was seeing is people are focused on the wrong crap. I heard one of our students say, man, I've been trying to set up my website for 2 weeks. I'm freaking stuck in a rut. I immediately messaged her like, dude, A, we could have helped you out with that. B, you could pay somebody on Fiverr like $40 to get the website out the way. But C, and most importantly, you are focused on the wrong things. At the end of the day, and this is what our coaching call yesterday was about, was the highest leverage task for you as a business owner in the Amazon space is keeping your pipeline full with new distributors and new brands. If your pipeline full, guess what? You have money on the table. Everything else is secondary. So focusing on the highest priority task is super important. But understanding you don't want to be the person that's just like, man, if I don't get these next 5 emails right, the world's gonna crumble. My next 100 emails right, the world's gonna crumble. Absolutely not. We gotta hit the ground running. We gotta be okay with just taking some swings at bat and say, hey, maybe these next 10 outreaches kind of suck and I don't get it right, but I got 10 more bats across the board. If I take 10 more free throws, I'm gonna be a better free throw shooter than someone who took 0. So what I hyper stressed on that call was, A, pick the highest leverage task, always. Always know what the highest leverage task is. And 99% of the time, especially for new sellers, that's just getting more brand deals. And B, be okay with just understanding that the more you do something, the better you get at it. Like, you can't come into the game and expect that, man, I'm gonna be as good as someone that's been in the game for 6 years, 10 years, because I have that many more reps than you. And that's because I'm A-okay with just doing the work repetitively, making mistakes, and figuring out along the way. One of the biggest mindset shifts, I can't stress this enough, volume negates luck. The more you do something, the better you get at it. And don't just think that if you mess up on the next 5, 10, 15 attempts that the world is crumbling down. There are over 400,000 different brands on Amazon right now. We have so many swings at bat that we can take. Volume negates luck. Now, this goes into the third point, right? Which is people who don't actually freaking do the math. What I see a lot of the times is after you've built momentum, you kind of understand your numbers. You understand after I do X amount of outreaches, I can close X amount of deals. You can literally break it down to a science. In our business, our head of brand outreach, Nadia, we have broke it down to a science. For every 400 brands that she reaches out to, we get 5 profitable brand directs deals that we can close, and that adds anywhere from 15 to 20K in weekly revenue to our business every single week. That's broken down to a science. So what you want to do is after you're swinging the bat this many times, just figure out, okay, for how much times do I do this? Do I actually get some more money across the board? What I see people screw up on this is they either fall into one bucket, where I was talking to another lady and she was so in her head. She was like, literally, I sourced 2,000 different brands. I'm like, yeah, but did you reach out to any? No. I gotta make sure that no. What you gotta make sure is you start reaching out to them, because you have 2,000 different opportunities in the bucket right now. Don't overanalyze. Get those 2,000 swings across the board, and now you have hard data to understand for every output you do, what comes out the other side. It'll come down to a section of her life where she'll say, hey, for every 100 brands I reach out to, I get 1 profitable. So I'm gonna just do 100 outreaches over the next course of 3 to 5 days, and I'm gonna always have 1 brand coming in. But be okay with actually doing the math, but you have to take the swings out there to get it done. The people that overanalyze, they freaking get stuck in a rut and they never grow. Whether that be, investing into a mentorship, whether that mean starting a business, whether that be reaching out to brands, whether that mean just sending their orders in. They never take swings at back. They completely overanalyze and they get scared of making any changes. On the other side of the spectrum, this is another thing that keeps people out of that top 1%, is they go way too freaking hard. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but think about it like this. If let's say you have a $10,000 budget for inventory. You don't want to risk all $10,000 that you have into just one batch of inventory without doing test orders and keeping some capital in case shit doesn't work out. I made this mistake when I first started, and it almost cost me just giving up on the business. I remember I had about 25K in my bank account when I first got started. I invested 2,500. That was the correct move, right? A small 10% of what I had. Not everything sort of point. If I make a mistake, I would start crying. First order went well. I made about $800 in profit that order. I was super excited. But what I started doing is moving a little too aggressively. I remember at one point I had so much money in inventory that I didn't have like a small rainy day fund. I remember one of my like fourth orders in. First, I made 2 bad buys in a row. I had no guidance. I was just guessing. Once I invested into a cheese dip, and it was the wrong, what you call a variation listed on Amazon. A little confusing, but either way, I just picked the wrong variation of the Amazon listing. Lost 5K on that order. We were eating cheese dip for like months in the office because of this mistake I made. It hurt. Right after that, I risked way too much capital. I had just made a mistake. I should have pulled back, reanalyzed, understood the mistake, and make sure I don't make another one. Right after that, I made another mistake. I bought this. It was like a wipe, almost like a medical Lysol wipe, and it was brand new to Amazon. It didn't have a lot of sales history, only about a month, but the numbers looked so good that I went balls to the wall. I invested 15K into that. First order went good. I reinvested every single thing back into it. Boom, I took a 15K loss right there. And it almost wiped me out because I was playing ball too big. I think an important thing to understand as you grow in your business is risk management, right? It affects your mental state and of course your finances when you put every single thing that you have into something. So I like people that have a bigger budget and take a small part of the pie and just relax and invest at a small amount and scale up. Yesterday on that same call, I had one of our students say, hey, I got 50K to go. I want to put 50K in my first order. I was like, dude, what if for whatever reason, something just goes a little wrong in that 50K? Do you have anything left? He said, no. I said, yeah, we're not going to do that, dude. You're going to put 5 to 10K in that first order. No more than that. He's like, man, I'm just going to scale so quick, so slow. And I'm like, okay, well, if it takes you another 2-3 months to scale, but you have a lot more certainty, wouldn't that help you sleep better at night? You, your spouse, your family. He said, yeah. I said, we're going to scale this business, no doubt. But your first order, we're not going to put everything in your life-saving 401k on the line. That is not going to make you a good business owner. You're going to be operating at a point of fear. So risk mitigation, especially for new business owners, is what's super important and what separates people at the top 1%. I will not invest the whole house on anything right now. I will take some bigger swings at bat when I have some confidence, but at the end of the day, we cannot bet the whole house because what it doesn't allow us to do is operate in a state of stoicism, calm, and calculated. We operate in a state of fear and panic when we make those big decisions for most people. Some people can handle it, but most people honestly cannot. And the last thing, which I think is arguably the most important, where at the end of the day, right, you want to always think about how you are not going to be a solopreneur. And all that means is, end of the day, you want to outsource. I remember we just had a speaker come to do a workshop. He's a gentleman. He does over $7 million per year. He did it last year. He has 2 staff members. That blew my mind because we have a lot more staff members than that. But regardless of if you have 2, 5, 10, 15, or 1, at the end of the day, outsourcing is what allows you for time freedom. The top 1%, we understand that we can only make a certain amount of decisions in a day. If we're the one filling out emails, right? The one filling out new brand direct forms, the ones contacting the brands, the one creating the reorders, the one tracking our profitability, the ones doing everything under the sun, we have literally just gave ourselves another job. We want to outsource. Either outsource something that you're not that good at or something you don't like doing. This is the leverage you want to create after you understand the full business. Now, you can't start off here. Don't try to outsource too early. Understand the full roadmap, understand how the full business works, and then figure out what you can outsource. One of the first things I outsourced was just responding to buyer seller messages. When people messaged me, that was just busy work. Next thing I outsourced was somebody just to fill out the actual forms to open accounts, right? It was busy work, right? Then I started outsourcing the person actually doing my reorders and tracking my numbers, busy work, right? I would always take things one at a time off the plate until I got to a point where all I was doing in business was communicating with brands that people had put on my desk. Eventually I let go of that vine and hired someone for that, but that took a little bit of time. But at the end of the day, always think about it like this, we want to outsource. Majority of the people I speak to are getting into this business or another business to get time and money freedom, right? The money freedom you're gonna get in a business because for most businesses, there's no cap on how much income you can make, but the time freedom is what allows you to act like an actual CEO. I love when I can just wake up in the morning and I have 3 to 5 decisions to make. That's it. The plate is light as hell, right? If I have too much stuff to do, I will not be operating at a high frequency. So I can't stress this enough. Create leverage. You can use AI, you can outsource to AI or actual humans. But either way, always think about how do I remove myself from the business. So if I'm on vacation with family, we can still bring in some damn money. It is not solely dependent on me to put food on the table, right? Plus, at the end of the day, I think it's pretty cool when you can actually give people jobs and actually affect their life and be, well, some control into kind of the livelihood that they want by creating these infrastructures for them. I really like that as well. So that's how the top 1% of Amazon sellers think. None of this is flashy, but the mindset is what separates the people that actually build something successful from the people who actually just burn out from making a ton of bad mistakes. Those are the people just chasing shortcuts. If you want to go deeper and find out the exact systems that we've used to do over $40 million in sales on Amazon, click the first link in the description to register for our completely free live training. I break down everything step by step, how to get approved with real authorized brands and suppliers, to how to build a business that can actually scale without you. If this video was helpful, make sure you subscribe. I put out videos every week breaking down what's actually working right now and answering some of the toughest questions for you new sellers out there. If you have any other questions, make sure to drop them in the comments. I read all of them and make sure I give you all the things I wish I knew back in 2020 when I was first getting started and there was no resources out there at all. And if it's something that I see continuously pop up, I'll make sure to make a long form video like this one for it on YouTube so you get a more in-depth answer. I'll see you in the next one and I hope this helped.